Is President Obama selling out Israel over his pending deal with Iran? Is Benjamin Netanyahu exaggerating the threat Iran poses to Israel? Dr. Walid Phares will join us with his thoughts. Also, ISIS continues its persecution of Christians in Syria. When will we see real action by the West? Plus, we'll have Rick's report card on CPAC. That and much more tonight. This is The Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And tonight on the show, my SiriusXM radio star and Forbes columnist Rick Unger is here. There he is. Back from Washington. Not looking any worse for the wear. From the city of brotherly love, attorney Heather Hansen joins us in a very, very summer-like outfit.
Yeah, gotta bring it.
It did hit 40 here today, so that makes
summer.
sense. And finally, new to the Wrap, but certainly not to Newsmax TV or any other cable network for that matter, political strategist Hank Sheinkopf joins us. Thank you, Hank, for joining us. Okay, enough of the pleasantries. Let's go to the Daily Download.
Ladies and gentlemen, Israel and the United States
I got confused. I thought the SOT was out of
agree
the bump, not out of the...
that Iran should not have nuclear weapons. But we disagree on the best way to prevent Iran from developing those weapons. Now, disagreements among allies only natural from time to time, even among the closest of allies. Because there are important differences between America and Israel. American leaders worry about the security of their country. Israeli leaders worry about the survival of their country.
And that was Netanyahu giving a warm-up speech at the annual meeting of the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee. This just one day before his controversial speech in front of Congress scheduled for tomorrow. While Republicans and Netanyahu are under fire from the White House and Democrats in general for his visit to D.C., the Prime Minister says he needs to speak up about the dangers of Iran. Some say Bibi is exaggerating the threat and using the visit to bolster his re-election campaign. To get more insight, we're joined now by Middle East expert and author of The Lost Spring, U.S. Policy in the Middle East and Catastrophes to Avoid, Dr. Walid Phares. Dr. Phares, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me today.
So let's avoid the politics of Netanyahu's visit right now and concentrate on Iran. What is at stake for Israel regarding the U.S.-Iranian talks?
Well, for Israel, as the Prime Minister has mentioned, and there is a consensus on this even for those who disagree with him, i.e. the administration, that Iran has the capacity and will have the capacity if armed with nuclear weapons to obliterate Israel, and they're not shy about that. So their fight, the Israelis' fight with regard confronting the Iranians, have a different parameter than not just American confrontation for security issues, but also many Arab governments. I mean, Jordan, Saudi, UAE, Bahrain, even Qatar, with whom we have a lot of problems. All of those have the same issue with Iran as Israel, but they're not as vocal as Israel.
And Bibi said time and again that Iran is close to acquiring a nuclear weapon, or at least the ability to produce one. How close really are they as far as you know?
We have discussed this many times. My view is slightly different from the common view. For the Iranians, it's not how close are they from building the nuclear weapon. They are in control of the speed with which they want to build that nuclear weapon. Meaning, if they make the decision today, in 6 to 7 months, they can put together, if not a huge weapon, but at least a tactical nuclear weapon, which is enough to use with their the missiles they have. What really the game of the Iranian leadership has been is, number one, to build the delivery system, the long-range missiles. I've been making this case for the last 10 years. And second, more importantly, is to be able to have allies in the region from which countries, and so they could put also launching pads. That's way different from just having an Iran that is dangerous, but they would be able to put it in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon with Hezbollah, and now guess where? From Yemen as well. So that's the real bigger game of the Iranians.
Very scary stuff. We only have about 30 seconds left, but I can't remember the last time that any foreign leader, particularly an ally, has come to this country and fractured our government as much as Benjamin Netanyahu has in terms of the infighting. Just how damaged is our relationship with Israel right now?
I have a different take here as well. I mean, people have been talking about the destruction of these relationships. Washington is divided. It's because of Washington is divided that Mr. Netanyahu was able to come and deliver that speech, which we hope will unify American politicians. I mean, the last elections in the midterm were not just about domestic politics. There was a rejection of the administration's policy to precisely cut that deal with the Iranian regime and with partnering with the Muslim Brotherhood. Remember, we have a much bigger debate here in America among Americans with the administration than just having the opinion of the Prime Minister of the State of Israel. I can tell you that more leaders in the Middle East would love to come and address our Congress, but Benjamin Netanyahu has more friends and he's more daring.
Dr. Phares, we thank you for joining us today, and certainly tomorrow is a big day. I know you'll be watching. We'll be watching here, too, at Newsmax. Dr. Walid Phares, U.S. Policy in the Middle East and Catastrophes to Avoid is the book. Please go out and buy it. And again, we thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, guys and gals, let's discuss. I saw you shaking your head throughout that interview.
He's on the mark. Look, Benjamin Netanyahu has been having this discussion in public and in places to meet before he was reelected head of the government some time ago. He's been saying the same thing, and the Arabs are very clear. They know the first stop may not be Tel Aviv. They may believe the first stop may be Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. That's really what this is about. The Shia-Sunni breakdown, and that will determine how Iran uses these weapons. This is very serious. The time to stop it is before you put American boys on the ground. The time to stop it is before they have the bomb. But this administration doesn't believe that somehow. And the Iranians have told you what they intend to do. When crazy people talk, one must listen to them.
Heather?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I also think we've got a major problem when we can't inspect. They don't allow our inspectors in, so we don't know what they have. And to trust that we're now going to be allowed to inspect just because they say so, when that has not been their rule thus far, is a little bit naive and very dangerous.
Rick, it's hard to believe that there's this much trust being given
well,
to the mullahs
I
at this
don't
point.
know. You know, there are so many questions that have to be answered. Last week, we saw a memorandum that was finally disclosed showing that the Mossad has a very different opinion as to how close they are to having a nuclear weapon. Today, we find out that this council that exists in Israel of high-ranking ex-military people, including 3 Mossad leaders, think that Bibi made a huge mistake coming to the United States, that it was political, that it's counterproductive to our relationship. It's getting very hard for me to know what is real there and what is political, and I wish we knew more about that.
Hank, are you surprised at how this has become a right-left issue and we only have about 15 seconds?
Not surprising at all. Either you stand with Israel or you don't. You can't, it's a great Yiddish expression, you can't dance at 2 weddings, okay? You have to have your behind in one place or the other. You can't move. And this is very clear. Either you are or you ain't.
And that'll be our last word on that segment. We're sure to be talking about that tomorrow, I have a feeling. Coming up next, ISIS ramps up Christian persecution in Iran. Can they be stopped? This is the Daily Max from New York City, and it's only on Newsmax TV.